back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise podcast. After a long hiatus, it's time to remember this crap again. With Mike Donahue. Mike, how are you?
Happy to be back, Andy. Thanks. It's been a while, like you said.
The Bears are going to play the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday. And this is a long-running rivalry in the NFL. A very one-sided rivalry, despite the fact that the Eagles have won the last 5 in a row. The Bears have the all-time lead the series 29-16-1. So at one point the Bears won 29 of the first 41.
Sure. They would have, these are old Eastern Conference, Western Conference teams that would not really have met every year prior to the 60s. So, and when the Bears were dominant, the Eagles weren't. The Eagles' first golden era was in the late 40s, and they didn't meet the Bears. They did meet the Chicago Cardinals twice, in fact. Lost to them. For the Cardinals to this day, still only NFL championship, but then the Eagles got their revenge on them the next year for their first ever NFL championship, and for good measure repeated with Steve Van Buren and the boys in 49, and then not again until 60, and then not again until 4 years ago. So, but yeah, the teams, these are like two OGs. Before we go too far down the rabbit hole, I just want to make a quick comment about the New York Jets, because unfortunately, Andy, as you know, schedules did not allow us to permit us to drag the Jets. We may have to wait 4 years, but I just wanted to see if we could, real quick before we get rolling, throw one quick Bears-Jets memory, because I have one, and I just want to say it for the record. It is somewhat mundane, but it was in the Bears Super Bowl season of 2006, not 85, but they played the Jets in 85 also, as it happens. But the same day that Alfonso Soriano signed with the Cubs, the Bears won a game in which Jets coach Eric Mangenius decided to start the second half with an onside kick, which failed.
Nice.
And that's my Bears Jets memory. I can move on now. You got one?
Well, I was just going to say that we didn't do a traditional remember this crap on the Jets. However, we did an entire game a couple years ago.
That's right.
We didn't need overtime, the Blair Thomas, Steve McMichael stealing the fumble from Blair Thomas, and an improbable Bear victory over handsome little Pete Carroll and the Jets, which is most famously remembered for Cap Boso wandering around with an entire chunk of sod stuck to his face.
The turf monster from Lake Michigan.
No, I was going to say that it's funny that the Mangenius had tried an onside kick against the Bears to start a half. It didn't work. And a guy that I, for some reason, always equate with him, Marty Mornhinweg, is most famous for winning the toss in overtime against the Bears and kicking off.
Well, there you go.
Probably a reason that the two of them didn't coach after. Although Mangini did get a second job, right? Didn't he coach?
He did, Cleveland.
Yeah.
Yep. He did come back.
Poor Marty. He's still waiting. He's still waiting for his chance.
Marty never got another chance. Yeah, because I think Mangini may have taken the Jets to the playoffs, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, Mangini, I mean, he was such a pop culture icon that that Mangenius is referenced on The Sopranos.
Was he not on The Sopranos, or was that just Tony Siragusa, the late Tony Siragusa? Wasn't Tony former NFL Super Bowl lineman for the Ravens, Tony Siragusa? Did he play a role as one of Tony's bodyguards for a few episodes?
I was wondering if Mangini was somehow like on the
in
show
a poker
as himself.
Game. Yeah, I thought like a poker game, but I could be. You're right. I think he was written into the script and was referenced in a conversation.
Paulie's the one who called him the Mangenius, right?
Well, I think people around the league did.
No, I mean in the show. I think he's the one who got the line. It was either him or Christopher. I'm pretty sure it was Paulie. Probably because David Chase thought it'd be funny to listen to him try to say Mangenius.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah, Sopranos been off the air 15 years, over 15 years now. So.
Eric Mangini.
Yeah, I thought he was in like a poker game or something like that. Maybe not. Sometimes they would drop like Frank Sinatra.
Oh, he's in Artie Bucco's. He's in Vesuvio with Artie Bucco.
Oh, that's what
pointed
it
him
is.
Out. There he is.
Go say hello.
So Artie is the one who says "man genius," and he points at the table, and then Tony gets up to go say hi.
Paulie would have said it sarcastically.
Artie Bucco.
It's my guess. All right, well, good. I don't think Eric Mangini's name has come up, probably because, maybe we did do the Browns, but I don't even know if
the Bears ever face him. Other than that,
I don't think so. The only thing about that game was it was like a 10-3 game. The only touchdown was like a 70-yard Grossman to Mark Bradley, which I think was Mark Bradley's only touchdown that season. It was a catch and run. It was like an 8-yard pass towards the sideline, and Bradley beat his guy and then went the rest of the way. So that's that will conclude our abbreviated and annotated to the 91 Gamecast. Jets, Bears, remember this crap.
So the Bears and Eagles first matched up on November 12th, 1933. And it was a
championship season.
It was a barn burner. 3-3 tie.
Of course. Hey, not bad for an expansion team, right? That was the Eagles' first season. I'm showing it is. I got the Eagles page up, so that's the first season. And I'm just point that out because the Bears were absolutely dominant and would in fact go on to win. They were defending league champions and would go on to win the first official championship game in 33 at Wrigley Field. So good for the hard scrabble company Eagles to probably weren't a company team anymore by 33. I think that's when the NFL is really, they had championship games and shit. Maybe they're a little bit more legit than just a factory belching company teams. By 33.
The Eagles and Bears would match up 10 more times between 1935 and 1947, and the Bears would win them all. Not only that, but if you include the 33 game, the Eagles didn't score a touchdown against the Bears until their fourth game.
Nice.
So there's a reason. There's a reason that the Bears lead the series 29-16 to 1.
Yeah, well, when you're sort of in this period where that for the next 18 years you're pretty much the best team in the league, and then you're facing an expansion team at the beginning of that cycle, even though you're not in the same conference. So, good thing for the Eagles. Imagine if they were in the Western Conference with the Bears, right? And they not only played every year but played twice a year. I reckon that difference would be even wider. Because they didn't play that, I'm looking at every, say, 38th. Kind of was every year, I guess. I guess that's probably how the schedules went. My apologies. You would play every team. I mean, they play it every season. Okay, I can see now from 33 on. So I guess that's how the NFL schedule was. You just played, there were probably about 8 teams in the league, 4 in each conference. You'd play your own twice. That's 6.
They played basically every year until 49. Then I got space.
Okay. That's when the Browns and the 49ers and the Colts and the old AFC teams joined, and NFL, started getting a little bigger there, so they couldn't quite schedule teams every year beginning then. So, but yeah, Bears definitely built a pretty healthy spread.
Yeah, they won 20 of the first 22 matchups.
That's worse than any stretch of Brett Favre era over the Bears. Close, but
the Eagles finally got 2 wins, two in a row. They beat the Bears in 79 and 80.
They beat them in 79 in the playoffs.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Just to track.
Was this the ice game? Was there ice on the field in this game? No.
Maybe, but it was in Veterans Stadium.
No excuse.
Oh, we can talk about it if you're ready. I was still just pulling it up chronologically about them just getting their asses handed to them the first 15 years of their existence before they, like I said, they won those championship games, and then they were not much of anything really. They were there. They were always on the schedule. I mean, you want to talk 79 though? That's I'm here for it.
Well, I don't know that I have, unless you have much to add.
Well, I've stated right. Well, I'll just tell you that I've said it before. 79 would just happen to be the year that I kind of picked up in the last couple months of the Cubs season, and then the Bears have this Walter Payton guy, and even though they're not on Monday Night Football, we can watch, one highlight narrated by Howard Cosell while we watch Monday Night Football and dream someday we'll be there. And the Bears had a kind of a crazy season. We've gone over how they had to kick the shit out of the Cardinals in the last week, and Roger Staubach in what would be his last regular season game had to pull one out one last time to get us in. And sure enough, our opponent that year was the high-flying, new age Dick Vermeil-led Philadelphia Eagles, and it was very exciting. I could, I'm only 7, but I could totally. I mean, I was geeked, but you could sense the tension amongst the older members of the household, my brothers and my dad, because I think we discussed it too. The Bears had arrived in the playoffs 2 years earlier, breaking the longest drought in their entire history at that point, 14 years. When they, endured their first real dark age. But then they got completely drubbed by the Cowboys in the 77 wildcard team. And Dallas was at their peak. They went on to win the Super Bowl. 79, though, this entire game is on YouTube. And our good friend, George Allen, is the color analyst. And it might be a Vince Scully. It might be a Vince Scully production. And our friend Mike Phipps, of course, is the quarterback. This is a Bears team where Vince Phipsolini was in full force. Each of those guys played and contributed to the wild season. But Philly was the favorite. They were I believe there was a wild card game, which back then you only had 2 wild card teams, and that weekend it was just 2 games. And the Bears hung tight. So this is the game that I've talked about before. This is a real sort of a pain point. 7 years old. I'm totally into Walter Payton. And at some point in the game, second quarter, third quarter, Bears are inside their own 15. Payton breaks off what would become regular season or postseason the longest run from scrimmage in his career, 84.5 yards. He didn't score. He actually got tackled like on the 2-yard line. But the Bears were pinned in their own end. The penalty, it was not a hold, which a lot of fans sometimes will get mad and they'll blame it when you kind of ignore the fact that a hold might well have been a factor in the play. It was a bullshit, illegal legal shift or procedure call on poor old Brian Bashnagel. Nullified the whole thing. And I think it was at a point in the game. You can track it down because, like I said, the entire game is on YouTube. I watched it about a year ago through the agony and the ecstasy. There's also some shitty white receiver from Philly that broke loose late for like an 80-yard touch. He wasn't even one of their famous guys. I mean, Philly was on the rise. I mean, Ron Jaworski, Harold Carmichael, Wilbur Montgomery. That was their offensive trinity. They're all, I mean, to this day, I see Carmichael is still their all-time leading receiver. And Montgomery was a hell of a running back, but, we were Bears fans, so we didn't have to. We had the gold standard there, but it was a tight game. The final score was 27-10, right?
Yeah.
But
27-17.
27-17. But it was a pain point, and it really kind of made me hate the Eagles early on.
Bears had a 17-10 halftime lead.
Yeah. Willing to thrill the nation. But
Phipps had a great game. I don't know, 13 of 30 for 142 yards and 2 picks.
It's the same story.
Career high passer rating of 30.1, I would guess. I don't know. I'm not even going to look that up. But Walter, 16 for 67, 2 touchdowns. Davey Williams, 10 for 23. Ricky Watts and Brian Bashnagel both had 3 catches.
Oh, Ricky drops a huge pass. Andy, I'll find the link. Drop it in. Ricky was an exciting player. He returned a punt or had an 80-yard touchdown in that Cardinals game that got him in the playoffs. He was also a guy that later on, a few years later, got a little chubbier and found his shoulder pads and other equipment in the parking lot thanks to a curly-haired new head coach in town. But Watts, I know, absolutely dropped one right through the fucking bucket, too, at some point in the game. So I'm sorry to mention that, Ricky, in case you're, that your name checked for all the wrong reasons. Yeah.
Ricky Franklin, he was barefoot kicker, right?
He was. Yeah. Isn't that nuts?
Dumb. Yeah. Let's see. Did Bob Thomas miss an extra point?
Andy. Oh, that's right. They scored 17. I'm going to say not likely.
I don't know if he even missed he did miss a field goal. A 50 or longer. What are you even trying? It was 50 yards. He missed a 50-yard field goal attempt.
Had to be the end of the half.
I've said this before. Bob Thomas couldn't make a 50-yarder if you let him kick it and then kick it again from the spot where it landed. He would not give him 2 cracks at it. It's not going to happen.
Well, back to Tony Franklin. You'll remember, too, that we're on the Veterans Stadium turf. That, all right, yeah, it's 79, so it might be a little bit less, like, fatal than it was, like, for Wendell Davis 14 years later. But so you're walking around in a bare foot in, in
not fun.
January in a parking lot painted green. So, yeah, it's a different time.
One thing I neglected to do, and I don't know why, is we hadn't gone through the early coaches of the Eagles. Do you know their first coach, what his name was?
No.
Lud Ray.
I love the names.
Lud.
We need to go back.
Future commissioner of the league coached them for 56 games.
Bert Bell?
Yes, Bert Bell. They were 10-44-2 for Bert. That's a cool 196 winning percentage. And then, do you know who was their coach when they won the NFL championships in 48 and 49?
I did, only because I looked it up earlier, but it's a name I've heard before, and you probably have too, and it could be a very inappropriate double entendre. But Greasey Neale?
Greasey Neale. Earl Greasey Neale. Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that's a name that we'd probably heard. There might be an NFL
and
film.
And the picture, I should remember to put the picture in, he looks like Ed Lynch.
What?
He looks like Ed Lynch with weird pants.
Wow! If only. Wow! He actually almost looks like Andy McPhail. Now that you mention it.
Yeah, I can see. Wow. Actually, if Ed and Andy had a kid, which they probably did,
it
would have looked like Greasey Neale.
Greasey Neale.
Greasey must have quit early. Maybe no, opposite. Bo McMillan only coached 2 games in 51, and then Wayne Milner took over, and they went to 8 after that. Then they had Jim Trimble. Remember him? No, nobody does. Hugh DeVore.
Nope.
His name sounds familiar, but
it does.
Buck Shaw coached him from 58 to 60, and he won an NFL championship.
Should I know who that is? Buck Shaw was their coach in 60?
Yes, Buck Shaw.
I thought their quarterback was Norm Van Brocklin, I think. So.
And then they had Chuck
Bednarik.
Was that one of the years of Chuck Bednarik killed Frank Gifford?
No, it may have been the same season of their championship. It was around that time, for sure, absolutely. Chuck Bednarik, number 60, Concrete Charlie, the last 2.
There's that amazing picture of
Chuck
looming over a lifeless Frank Gifford. Frank laying there like a stewardess in his hotel room.
Right. 6 a.m.
Chuck, just get this over.
The NFL films, like there's footage of Bednarik. It's probably easy to find. When somebody asked him, because Bednarik's doing like this, of course nobody can see us, but he's sort of like standing on one foot and like almost like dancing on Gifford, right?
Yes, he's celebrating because the hit ended the game. And so he's celebrating an Eagles win. But
he said that what I was doing was, right, this game is over. And as he's bringing his fist down.
Just like Hawk Harrelson.
And, right. But not right. It's funny. Chuck Bednarik, definite, legendary Eagle. But that's that's his only championship. That was their only thing between only postseason appearance between 49 and the Vermeil era, I believe. They're mostly ass, and it's funny. The state of Pennsylvania really sucked ass in the 30s and 40s and 50, outside of that blip in the late 40s, and then again in 60, because we've discussed how opposite the first 50 years the Pittsburgh Steelers have been to the last 50, that they had not only no championship games until the Super Bowl era, no playoff games until the Super Bowl era, or no championship games, but one playoff game when they ended up in a tie in that 47 season. Is an all Pennsylvania NFL intra-division championship to see who would go to the title game. And the Steelers lost their only single playoff game, and they just happened to lose it to the Eagles. But the Eagles themselves were hardly a team that was holding dominion year in and year out. It was mostly just the Giants and maybe the Redskins. But a whole lot of nothing out of that franchise until the aforementioned Dick Vermeil and whatnot. So when they beat the Bears, they didn't have, they had a little bit of history, but they were still the better team and they won, but it was really frustrating that day. So one of those scars you earn as a kid. Pay the price for being a sportsman.
After Buck Shaw, I can only assume Chris Zorich's uncle Nick Skorich coached him for 3 seasons. Then Joe Kuharek.
He's been brought up before.
Also coached at Notre Dame.
Yeah, and I believe his son was the general manager that worked with Mike Ditka on the Ricky Williams trade or something like that. So
that sounds right.
There's a relationship there.
He was 28-41-1 with the Eagles, and that was the end of his coaching career.
Sorry, Garge.
The immortal Jerry Williams went 7-22. Ed Kyatt, 8-15. Mike McCormick, 16-25. And then, crying Dick Vermeil took over.
Yep.
Coached for 101 games, 54-47. He won the... Hub would be so proud. He was named Pro Football Weekly Coach of the Year in 1979. Prestigious. I'm sure Dick has that right up on his mantle, right next to the Lombardi Trophy he won with the Rams. Dick was 3-4 in the playoffs, including a loss in Super Bowl in whatever year that was after the '80 season.
I think if I know my late 70s Eagles, Vermeil had come from college at UCLA, and Jaworski had come from the Rams, the George Allen, and I don't know, he wasn't George Allen anymore, but like he was a backup to Ron Brown or whatever, and they were a good team for a while. 4 straight playoff appearances before Vermeil, right? Didn't he become the avatar for coaching burnout when he retired suddenly?
He was like the first guy to actually call it that. He basically said that he burned out. He was one of those guys who would sleep in his office and all that bullshit that you don't really need to do.
Right.
Couldn't handle it. He had to quit. And then he didn't coach again until, 1997?
97. So it's interesting then, too, is that, so in 81, so Vermeil, I don't know how old, he was a young coach, remember? Because he always kind of, he was annoying. He was kind of new agey, I think. He was a more of a touchy-feely than like the Greasey Neales of the world. But he takes them to 4 straight playoffs, and then in that strike-shortened season, they go 3-6, which actually isn't horrible because you could have almost made the playoffs. That's when he retires. So kind of at his peak. At that time, John Madden was early into like his broadcasting career, in which he would become just a whole otherworldly type of in addition to football media. And it was always speculated early on, would John Madden ever go back to coaching? And obviously he settled in and never did. And then Vermeil kind of settled into like a similar trajectory until, of course, after like 15 years, he did come out of coaching. And he was like just an older weirdo then. But then he was like, after a couple tough years, he friggin' won the whole goddamn thing, which he didn't do with the Eagles. It's kind of an incredible story.
He's been played in movies by Greg Kinnear and Dennis Quaid. Now, Randy Quaid would have been even more fun.
I was going to ask if it was Randy Quaid.
The Mark Wahlberg movie about the special teams guy that they hired off the street.
I've never seen it. Unbreakable?
Yeah, I think it's
okay.
Unbreakable.
That's great.
And then American Underdog, is that what it's called? America's Underdog or something. The Kurt Warner story. That has Dennis Quaid playing an older Dick Vermeil. So.
That's fast. That's fantastic.
That's not like the coach played himself in what's the Will Ferrell kids soccer movie?
Oh, I love that movie.
Kicking and Screaming?
Yeah, I watched it with my kids. I actually enjoyed it. Yeah. You know who else played themselves in Brian's song? Apparently, Doug Buffone and Ed O'Bradovich.
Oh, good.
Yes. So, I don't know if they still get royalty.
Abe Gibran play himself in that.
No, that would have been, I don't know, Charles Durning. Who could have been a good Charles Durning may have been a little too young in the early 70s. Maybe
Ned Beatty was too young.
Ned Beatty was too young. Maybe, can't think of an aging fat guy by the Jackie Gleason. Maybe
Zero Mostel would have been good.
Okay,
Zero Mostel would have been good. Abe Gibran. That's
That's awesome. But yeah, so they had the Eagles after Vermeil. So yeah, now I can start. You keep naming off these coaches.
Well, now they get a guy who also illustrious career with the Falcons, Marion Campbell.
A repeat mention in Remember the Script, a 2-time Atlanta Falcon coach, right? 2-time, I think so. This was the Marion Campbell Philadelphia era, both after and before when he coached for the Falcons.
Yes, the Grover Cleveland of coaches.
Of the Philadelphia
non-successive terms as head coach.
Exactly.
Marion got the gate with a game to go in the 85 season. And Fred Bruni got to coach it, and he won.
Back to not knowing the coaches. 1-0, sorry.
Baby. Well, that just set the stage then for their hire after the Bears had beaten before the Bears had beaten the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Word leaked out that the Eagles had hired Buddy Ryan to be their head coach.
And supposedly, and I still want to know how this physically can happen, but supposedly Dan Hampton threw a chair into a grease board and all 4 legs stuck.
Do I have that right? Right through the board into the wall. And
wasn't a prop?
Several people have told that story. It doesn't mean it's not bullshit. It just means several people have told it.
I'm going to choose to believe it. Why not?
Let's see. But the Bears, so 79, they lost 27-17. In 80, they lost 17-14.
And the Bears sucked in 80, couldn't get their revenge. They played them tough, and then I just really hated the Eagles.
Louis Giamona caught a 2-yard pass from Ron Jaworski to give them a lead they would never.
What about the Bears? Who scored for
Roland Harper.
Oh, good old Andy.
Yeah, probably the year I had my jersey.
That's right. You're probably wearing that,
jumping up and down for the TV
while you're watching.
By the way, folks, if you can buy a replica of that jersey in the DeCipio store, and I got one of the Intrepid readers apparently liked the shirt, and he emailed me and he's like, "Does it have to say Andy on it?" Like, yeah, that's the joke.
I'm not selling Roland Harper merchandise.
I can tell you that. Because nobody has, but it's there if you want it.
Well, nobody can get a Roland Harper jersey otherwise, so if anything, that might be the end around.
No.
So.
And it actually looks a little more like the one looks more like a Bear jersey than the one I had because I have the right number font. It has the Bear font. It does not have the trim on it. I didn't want to get sued, but on the jersey I had, it was all the numbers, no matter what team you got. It was just those conventional black football numbers.
That's right.
83, the Bears won a barn burner.
Hey, 83, by the way, you might not notice this, 83, the Bears played the Eagles twice.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, I was so excited as a kid. Because remember it would say how, like, if you finished in fifth place, back then in the schedule, even like a 10-year-old kid that could like multiply and figure out logic could figure out what the schedule would be every year based on how you finished. And so you'd play the same AFC conference every 3 years, but the NFC was determined by where you'd finish. And if you were first, you played the first and third team in each division the next year. And if you were second, you played the second and fourth team in division. But because of expansion with the Seahawks and the Bucks, you had 5-team divisions. In 2 of the 3 conferences in each division. In those cases, you played the other 5th place team in your conference twice, home and home. And the Bears finished last in 81 and 82. Good. But in 82, the strike shortened the season to only 9 games. I think they would have played the Cardinals twice. In 82. But yeah, and the other nice thing was that the Bears, if I remember correctly, beat the Eagles both times. Even though Dick Vermeil was gone. Yeah, I felt some revenge as a now 11-year-old on the wound from that playoff game in 79 that the Bears drummed them. But the Eagles were back to being down and out because Vermeil was gone and whatnot.
Bears won.
Conversely, the Bears were on the ascension, of course.
Bears won the game in Philly 7-6. Dennis McKinnon caught a 20-yard touchdown pass from Vince Evans in the first quarter, and that was all the scoring the Bears would need. The Eagles got 2 Tony Franklin field goals in the second half, but the Bears won 7-6.
Bears defense, by the way, is probably at this point already as bad as the Bears might still be, in the win-loss measure. Bears defense probably top 8 defense in the NFL.
Well, let's see.
Maybe top
Eagles.
And the Eagles, I'm thinking they probably still had Jaworski in '83. I mean, they probably still had members of their failed, Super Bowl pursuit. Although Carol Carmichael, I think, was pretty old by '79. So Carmichael, they had Mike Quick though by '83, I think.
Ron Jaworski in the 7-6 loss was 11 for 30 for 136 yards. Got sacked 4 times.
Washed up.
The Bears allowed a total of 225 yards to the Eagles.
Okay.
Then in the rematch, a month later, which is just weird, Bears won 17-14 at beautiful Soldiers Field. Mike Quick caught a 47-yard pass from Jaws, but then Jim McMahon threw a pair of second-quarter touchdowns to Dennis McKinnon and Emery Moorhead. And Bears hung on despite a Tony Woodruff touchdown pass from Ron Jaworski. Oh, that tied it in the third, and Bob Thomas did a 22-yarder. 22 yards. That's right at the fringe of his range. Bears won 2 minutes, 36 seconds to go. Bears won 17.
All the way down to the 5-yard line. Thank God. Yeah.
Jaws was considerably better in that game. He was 12 of 21 for 150 yards, and he only got sacked once. Good job.
Yeah. And the Bears, both teams, it looks like same record, but the Bears were going up, the Eagles were going down, and at that point, the Bears were kind of really heating up. So it's kind of, if you ever break down the whole rise and fall of the Ditka era Bears, you're looking at that game. You're kind of in the early fruition of it, I would say, but wouldn't be for just a year, I guess, when they'd actually win a playoff game, but. Still slogging along. At least they took out the Eagles twice.
So then the teams wouldn't match up again until week 2 of the 1986 season.
I was there. First time I'd see the Eagles in person.
Did they play Hotel California? Oh, the Philadelphia Eagles. I always get those confused.
Excellent. Don Henley came out. Yeah.
Glenn Fry was there.
Oh. It was, so put it in the context too, where the Eagles now, they're 5 years removed from a playoff appearance. Now the Bears, last time they played, the Bears had clowned them. Now the Bears are top of the world, defending Super Bowl champs. The Eagles are not supposed to be good yet, although they would be soon. So, but nobody expected it looked like the Bears. This is the second game after the Super Bowl, guys, and the Bears have scored 40 points the week before against Cleveland. So, Philadelphia did though have 2 young, very good interior defensive linemen, Reggie White, Jerome Brown, but nobody. It's if you basically, the Bears would have been probably 18-point favorites in this game. Let me just say that. But instead,
the Bears. The Bears won 13-10. Ron Jaworski started a quarterback for the Eagles.
You remember this game, right?
Oh, it was overtime.
Right. I mean, it was just it was actually the first hint after the Super Bowl that, God, man, because I think McMahon was already hurt.
Yeah, Tomczak,
right?
Quarterback.
So it's they're slogging through with no offense, and that'd be after the Super Bowl, just no
passing offense.
No passing. I mean, no real attack.
Tomczak was 10 of 22 for 100 yards and 3 picks.
I guess my point is the fact that this game went to overtime was shocking, and it was all right, well, if you love Buddy Ryan, good for him, but that game should not have been that close. So, but yeah.
Walter Payton ran 34 times for 177 yards.
Still racking them
up.
And
a touchdown. Willie Gault ran twice for 48 yards. Bears as a team ran 44 times for 244 yards. It's basically they were the 2022 Bears. We didn't even know it at the time. I'm sure the 3 picks helped a lot.
Unreal.
Mike Tomczak. 3 quarterbacks played for the Eagles.
Oh, for the Eagles.
Yes.
I bet you Randall got in, but
Yep. Matt Cavanaugh took 3 attempted 3 passes, and Randall Cunningham was 1 of 3 for 13 yards.
Was Jaws the other quarterback? Yeah,
he started 18 of 30 for 165 yards and a touchdown.
I would not have guessed. I would never have guessed that, even though I was at this game. I would never have guessed that Jaworski was still quarterback in his latest 1980. That he was that quarterback later than Theismann for the Eagles.
Walter was 0 for 2 with a pick.
Well, look, when you got Mike Tomczak out there, you're running end arounds with Willie Gault. You're having Peyton throw it up in the air. Anything to like how the fuck are we Ditka wanted to beat the shit out of Buddy too, right? I mean, he had to be absolutely out of his fucking mind.
The Eagles tied the game with a minute 25 left on a 26-yard touchdown pass from Jaws to Mike Quick.
I don't remember that.
And then Butler, with 5:56 to go in overtime, made a 23-yarder for the win.
That shows a lot of nerve of Philadelphia to actually come down on the 85 Bears defense, who suddenly had like Todd Bell and Al Harris back for reinforcements to actually tie that game up. I don't remember going that way, but obviously did. And Butler walked it off, and then I think the image from the end of that game was like, of course, Mike Singletary, who was always very demonstrative, a little bit performative. The big hug, right? After the Singletary was bawling because he's hugging Buddy Ryan after the game.
Fat boy. Good game, fat boy.
Is that what he did, really?
Yeah,
like endearingly?
Yes. Well, I don't know how endearingly it was when it started.
Well, Buddy was...
Then he called him 50. He wouldn't call him by his name for like 3 years.
Well, Buddy was famous for not acknowledging people's humanity, I guess, when he coached him, but call him by their number.
If you liked interceptions, this game was for you. Andre Waters had 2, Alonzo Johnson had 1, Mike Richardson had 2, Dave Dorsett had 1, and Otis Wilson had 1.
So there was a lot of defense.
There were 8 interceptions in a game when Mike Tomczak had 10 completions. There were almost more combined interceptions than Mike Tomczak completions. Great.
I really hate doing the
Kevin
Tomczak.
Butler had kind of a rough day. He was 2 for 6 on field goals.
Yeah.
He missed from 38, 46, 37, and 55. Boy, Ditka might have cut him on the spot if they had lost.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Butthead, though, he had a lot of currency from the year before. He did
but he missed. If he'd have missed a 5th field goal and they'd have lost to Buddy.
Yeah, right.
Anybody got John Rivetto's number? Let's bring him back.
The other thing I remember after the game was that Buddy ran straight to the tunnel, and so if people wanted to call Buddy a pussy, he said, "Well, I learned from Weeb Eubank because he was only Buddy's second game. I learned from Weeb Eubank that you just go to the tunnel. You don't go and shake hands with the coach. There was a lot of drama. Let's just say that. Easy to find a lot of stories about that day with an otherwise meaningless Philadelphia team, but not for long. His Buddy would turn them around, and I will say that about Buddy. He just happened to be the one coach that overall is probably worse than Mike Ditka. That's why he's one of the only 2 coaches that did get beat in the playoffs after the Super Bowl. But Buddy did take the Eagles to 3 consecutive playoff games. He just couldn't win a playoff game because he wasn't that good of a coach. But give him his props. He did restore the roar that had vanished after the Vermeil era. They just couldn't get over the hump.
I'm sure you remember all about this. They matched up again in October of 1987.
Yep, I do. First game of the Scabs.
The Bears just beat the shit out of them, 35-3. A huge game by future Chicago Blitz head coach Mike Hohensee. 12 of 22 for 157 yards and 3 touchdowns. Some guy named Sean Payton came in, and he was 5 for 11, 51 yards. Whatever happened to that guy? He ever do anything good?
Payton. No, Walter Payton was not on that team. He wouldn't cross the picket line.
No, this is his little brother Sean.
Yeah. So this was the first game.
Before Sean got the unfortunate facelift? I guess it probably was.
No, yeah. The Bears won that game. The Bears won the next game, and then Mike Hohensee was hurt, so Payton actually got the start. He shared him with some guy named Bradley, and that was the only game that the spare Bears would lose.
Ditka was so pissed that Hohensee didn't play. That Hohensee was going to be on. They got to keep guys. They kept the Kaz, and they kept Egypt Allen.
Egypt Allen, yeah. No, yeah, I remember. Yeah,
but they were going to keep Hohensee, and Ditka was so pissed that he didn't play in that third game that he told him to go home.
Yeah. Which, you know what?
He probably would have played in the playoffs against the Redskins. Well, he probably would have been better than Flutie.
Well, that's it. Well, no, it wasn't Flutie in '87. McMahon was healthy, but like McMahon.
Maybe the 88 was Flutie.
Your point stands. No, '86 was Flutie, but your point stands.
Oh, they all blend together.
Well, your point stands. If they didn't have an upright, like 100% McMahon, they didn't have any. He very well. That could have been how it worked out. I mean, who was the quarterback that year anyway that won the Super Bowl? It was Doug Williams, who was a very good quarterback, but almost a journeyman by that point. Incidentally, this
a lot of
game,
people called Doug Williams the Mike Hohensee of the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Just alternate universe. So I wanted to alert, in case people out there haven't seen this. I saw it recently thanks to my nephew Charlie. You're probably familiar with this Dorktown series, John Boyce. Kind of takes a lot of this analytical approach and makes it visual. There's a 20-minute video on Randall Cunningham seizing the means of production, but it's really about the Eagles and Cunningham. But there's a point, and it's partially about this game because this is the first game of the strike, and Buddy, to his credit, absolutely stood down and knew it was a farce and didn't really, give a shit, and that's why the Bears beat the hell out of them. Yeah, I mean, everything else being equal, the Eagles were not good the year before. If it was the real Bears and the real Eagles, that could have been the outcome, maybe, although the year before the Bears squeaked by and the Eagles were getting better. These were not the real Bears and real Eagles, and Buddy, I think, is credited with just not giving a shit, and Ditka, obviously, famously, and you just described it, Hohensee wouldn't be his bitch, Ditka himself, ironically, right, who as a player was a bit of a firebrand himself, and is the guy that's famously attributed with calling out his owner for throwing around nickels like they're manhole covers. All of a sudden, probably the early stages of his more metamorphosis into a Republican stooge. But being a coach, which technically puts him on management side, ultimately made no bones about the fact that he was on management side. To his defense, he's got to work too, and he's got these scabs to play. But I know I've heard it on multiple occasions where even, some of the, the veteran Bears players were a little bit, a little bristled at the relationship after the whole strike. So that's all I'll say about that. So the game is, yes, a Bears-Eagles game that the Bears won, but it's really a kind of an outlier.
So they would match up again the next season in the playoffs.
Once again, I was in attendance.
New Year's Eve.
Right.
It must have been unseasonably warm.
It wasn't unseasonably warm New Year's Eve. It was very pleasant down on the lakefront. Yeah. And my own personal recollection is, and I couldn't even tell you what the score was at halftime. It was weird that all of a sudden Buddy had gotten the Eagles to the playoffs in 3 years. But we don't have time for that. The Bears are there, and for at this point, the fifth straight year, and we expected to win, even though we'd kind of gotten our knees cut out from under us by the Redskins in the previous 2 years. But I remember about being at the game was sitting in my seat and then looking. I guess it would be to my right, to the southeast, or it must have been northwest. Just noticed in that old Soldier Field, that bowl, like these clouds kind of coming in right before halftime. I didn't think anything of it, other than the fact that by the end of the halftime performance, they just kept coming in. And then,
what was the halftime show? Was it up with people there?
Probably the Jesse White tumblers, to be truthful. If it wasn't that, quick diversion, my all-time favorite halftime gag at Soldier Field until they tore up until like the late 90s, they would still do this one. Low rent just hilarious entertainment though, where they would shoot a football out of a jugs gun straight up into the air, and they would have like three Joe six-packs come out, right, with like a jersey on, thinking that they could camp under and catch the punt. And not only did I never once see anyone catch a punt, not only did I never see anyone really come close, almost every time I would see this in the late 80s and the 90s, one of the three guys would like think that he have it, realize not, and start to like panically like move and then like trip over his own feet and practically get hit by the ball in the back of his head. It was like, to me, it was just like legitimately awesome entertainment. But you're right. Other than that, in the play, I think they were bringing out Jesse White tumblers at the playoff games by the late 80s. So I would bet that they were, but nobody could see them because there was fog all over the field. Like, and our seats were all the way up, like back, which all the seats were shitty in that place. Ours were actually usually decent because they were kind of at least up, which meant when the fog was in, they're just whoever has a radio, we just kind of sat, in our seats and listened to the radio the whole second half.
So Tomczak started, but McMahon played. McMahon was 2 for 3 for 13 yards.
I don't know. I can't account for that. I know McMahon started the championship game the next week. I can't imagine, or maybe I could. Ditka just sending McMahon out into the fog.
I'm just assuming because McKinnon threw a touchdown pass early in the first, or McKinnon. Tomczak threw a touchdown pass to McKinnon early in the first quarter.
Yes.
I mean, I guess
I don't know.
3:02 into the quarter, so it's not. I doubt they had enough time for. Well, maybe Jim had enough time to start and get hurt and be taken out.
No, I can't imagine. We're gonna have to figure that out while we can circle back to that. But all I know is I thought that another part of the dysfunction of how they managed things in the 80s, because I've gone down some like YouTube rabbit holes, and even like Johnny Morris pieces on Channel 2 and stuff, like drama around the Bears. The fact that Mike Tomczak by now actually, remember I characterized him before as being a guy that was like McMahon's lackey, and that he kissed up to McMahon, and that like they both would like sick on Harbaugh, but that Tomczak himself actually sort of got like so big for his britches that he legitimately thought that there was the media talked about it. I am surprised I don't remember it that well, but it was like McMahon, like Tomczak thought he had every right to that job as well. There was that. It wasn't like he was deferential to McMahon by then. A little bit of tension apparently towards the end. I can't, and it frustrates me that was even the case, because we don't need to look back 20 years to see how horrible Mike Tomczak was, although it's painfully obvious he was. Yeah, and the fact that Ditka let that go on. But you know what? Ditka wasn't crazy about McMahon. McMahon wasn't always healthy. So, mind games and shit going on. They were just dysfunctional when it came to that position. It's almost endemic to the franchise. Till now.
So the Bears led 17-9 at halftime. The fog rolled in. In the second half, 2 field goals. One each team. That was it. Luis Zendejas and Kevin Butler traded field goals in the second half.
I don't even know how the officials could see the goal. I mean, right? Because you were watching at home, and they obviously had to use like sideline cameras.
Yeah. Actually,
was this one of like
Vern Lundquist and Terry Bradshaw were the announcers.
It was one of Bradshaw's earliest games as an analyst, right? Early in his career.
And they had to call it off the monitors because they couldn't see the field from the booth. And you really the from my memory, the cameras like in the stands, like the permanent ones were useless. It was only the ones on the sidelines where they could get closer were the ones you could see it. And I just remember, like, didn't Maurice Douglas like recover a fumble in the fog or something? And
he had an interception that I think was captured. Yeah, or maybe it was
ran it back 47 yards. Vestine Jackson had an interception, returned 51 yards. Neither one of those guys scored.
Oh, Mo didn't score? Too bad, because his touchdown dance might have really been something back then, especially back then, comparatively.
The Eagles weren't shy about throwing it.
Okay,
Randall Cunningham.
By the way,
Randall was 27 of 54 for 407 yards.
That's nuts.
And 3 picks. No touchdowns.
That's nuts. I did find a story. Eventually, Bears quarterback Mike Tomczak would be knocked out of the game, replaced by an injured Jim McMahon, who disappeared into the unknown as he trotted onto the field.
There you go.
I don't know. That's in the middle of an article, but so that shows you McMahon was healthy enough to play and did play Tomczak. I mean, obviously McMahon might not have been 100%, and McMahon did get the start the next week with a chance to go to the Super Bowl and didn't impress. But
that was isn't that bear weather?
Yeah,
wasn't the
that's the one that
it was going to be cold. They were playing the Niners, and we're going to the Super Bowl because
when those wine drinkers from Napa Valley,
35 to 13 or whatever it was, something bad.
28-3, I believe. I don't think the Bears scored a touchdown. They got humiliated at home in the title game. But yeah, so this was one of the two playoff games that Mike Ditka would win. In the after the Super Bowl, one over Buddy Ryan, the next one would be over Jim Mora, both of whom were answer to a trivia question, in which I won an AM 1000 ESPN T-shirt, Mac Yurko and Harry 20 years ago. Ali Sherman being the third coach at some point until Marvin Lewis blew by them that had taken a team to the playoffs at least 3 times and had never won. And Buddy didn't. Although Buddy Ryan and Jim Mora both had sons that had won playoff games. But anyhow, Buddy's team was on the ascension because the next time they would play was
before we get to that.
September. Go ahead.
A former Bear had an interception for the Eagles.
Todd Bell.
Did he really? And Glenn Kozlowski had a kick return in this game. So I'm sure Koz was probably telling him, all right, guys, I played in the last game against the Eagles. Here's what they're going to do. And they're all like, shut up, scab. Go coach high school or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, go ruin WGN broadcasts.
Remember for a while, Koz's sidekick on GN was Rob Goldman.
Oh, boy. Poor Rob.
Rob got busted in a sting at the Gurney Mills Mall.
You don't hear Rob's name much anymore.
Trying to have sex with a 14-year-old girl.
Yeah, that's been a while.
Yeah, it has.
Kozlowski was just horrible on the radio. Hate him.
All right, so the next time, 93.
89. The next season.
I missed 89. Oh, God, 89. During the
all right. We're going to have to go over this,
89 season, the Bears.
The Bears started off 4-0
with
Dan Hampton, and then Dan Hampton had his knee surgery, and this was the beginning of the end. But this was a great Monday. It was a great game because the Eagles then were legit. They were confident, right? And like Reggie's one of the best linemen in the game. I don't know if Jerome Brown was dead yet. I don't know if he died later. But they had who's Seymour? No, it's Clyde Simmons, right? I mean, the Eagles, fucking, Buddy. Like I said,
future
Buddy,
Bear, Clyde Simmons.
And I don't know what that game looked like. I just know the Bears. It was a legit Monday night game, and it was a fun game. And I believe the Bears were 4-0 after that game.
Yep. Yes. The Eagles were 2-2. The Bears were 4-0.
And one of those teams would make the playoffs.
Dennis McKinnon caught a touchdown pass from Mike Tomczak again. Suey caught one from Tomczak.
Way too much Tomczak in these things.
Kevin Butler missed the extra point.
Actually, the Bears kicked their ass.
Yes. Neil Anderson had a touchdown run in the third. RoboCop caught a 36-yard touchdown pass from Tomczak. 27-13. Mike Tomczak outdueled Randall Cunningham.
Hey, if only Mike Tomczak's NFL career consisted of opening Monday night games, he'd be a Hall of Famer. Because, I'm sorry, this was not an opening night game, so scratch that. But damn,
first Monday night.
Right,
he should always have played the Bears' first Monday night game every season.
I think we established that Mike Tomczak's single greatest NFL game was the lid lifter in '87 against a very good Giants team.
Well, how about this one? 24 of 38, 266, and 3 touchdowns.
That's what I'm saying. Right.
Even better, Randall. Remember I said, didn't we say Randall threw 54 passes in the fog?
Oh my, yeah.
How about this game?
Yeah.
32 of 62 for 401 yards and 4 interceptions. He threw 100. I got to do math here. What's that? 116 passes in 2 games and threw 7 interceptions. Yes. Maybe run the ball.
Yes.
Randall only ran it 5 times for 41. Should have loaded him. He should have run 40 times. He should have run 62 times. They'd have won.
Yeah. Mike Tomczak, the anti-Kirk Cousins, only does well in prime time.
Right. When the lights were on, T-Zack was ready to roll.
Crazy. So yeah, we all know how it went for the '89 Bears. 4-0. They finished the season 6-10. Eagles would go to the playoffs again. Buddy loses again. They won another one. They didn't. That whole thing didn't happen until.
I know, wasn't that because famous quote in Washington?
Yeah, right. We've established that.
I think we won another game, and he was right. They didn't.
I think we've etched that into the. We should have, if not, because it was so foreign in '89. Because at that point we were so used to like dominant, and we'd never had it before. 84, 83, 84. All of a sudden, this team that goes to the playoffs 5 years in a row. Yeah, in retrospect, they underwhelmed, but we were just so accustomed to this. We developed that swagger, and then they go 4-0 in '89. And all of a sudden. That's at some point the wheels jumped and nobody would accept it. So when Ditka said, "I don't think we can win another game this year," we're just like, "Hey, he's typical hyperbole, Ditka." He said it with like 5 games to go, and they lost the last 5 games.
Now, they faced each other again in '93 at the Vet, and this was a quarterback matchup that honestly I'm sure they took this game film and it probably plays on a loop at Canton. Jim Harbaugh and Bubby Brister.
Well, I'm sorry. I threw up my arms because I instinctively, when I filed through the Rolodex in my head of Bears Eagles '93, I can only think of Wendell Davis.
Oh God, that's right.
This is the Wendell Davis.
The Bears left town after this game, and Wendell's kneecaps remained stuck to the Veterans Stadium turf. One of the most horrific injuries of all time. So he had a pass over the middle. It was a little high from Jim. Wendell went to jump for it. Somehow his feet both got stuck on the awful turf. He dislocated both kneecaps. And when the trainers went to check on him, they found his kneecaps up under his thighs. And they had to go move those back down for him.
Thus endeth the career of 1988 first-round draft pick out of LSU, Wendell Davis. First-round pick along with Brad Mustard.
Let's see, did Wendell have a catch? How did he do?
Oh, did he hang out of the ball at least on that one?
He 3 for 38. I don't know if he caught that. I'm pretty sure he didn't catch that one.
I'd like to think he did. I always liked Wendell Davis.
The leading rusher for the Bears that day, Ironhead Hayward.
Big free agent signing. This is Dave Wanstadt's first year, '93.
13 for 42. Harbaugh, 7 for 35. And Neil Anderson ran 20 times for 24 yards. And Neil's like, I think I might be about ready to quit.
Neil was pretty much done by '93. So
he averaged 1.2 yards a carry. Is that good? That doesn't seem good.
Thanks for the memories, Neil.
Leading rusher for the Eagles. Can you guess who this was?
'93?
93.
No, go
you
ahead.
might not remember he ever played for him. Herschel Walker.
Whoa, I did not remember Herschel played for the Eagles.
93, that means, let's see. There's some, 29-year-old kids in
Philadelphia area?
Greater Philadelphia area.
Someone hanging out in King of
Prussia.
Prussia.
To the clinic.
Or Pittsburgh area.
Yeah. Bears won 17-6. They were at 3-2. The Wani mania was taking hold.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, we're back on.
We
track.
We were so excited. We got the best coach on the market. Now we're 3-2. Nothing can stop us. A year later, they faced again in Philly, and this time
a Monday night game, I think, early in the season, and the Bears would make the playoffs in '94, but not win that game. Right?
A little better quarterback matchup this time. Eric Kramer and Randall Cunningham.
Oh, very nice. Yeah. Good for the national audience. I'm pretty sure it was a Monday night game.
Let's see. They combined to throw 6 touchdown passes. Randall threw 5. No, they both threw 3. Kramer, 18 of 31 for 289, 3 touchdowns and a pick, including an 85-yard touchdown pass to Curtis Conway.
I like that the Eagles had a 30-0 lead at the end of 3 quarters, and the Bears outscored them 22-0 in the 4th quarter and lost.
22-yard touchdown pass to Conway from Kramer. Butler kick. 85-yard touchdown pass from Kramer to Conway. Conway caught the 2-point conversion pass. And then Marv Cook. Big old number 80-something tight end.
16-yard
pass from Eric Kramer Made it 22-30
He's
with
no
about
cap.
3:35 to go. I'm sure.
There was a lot of time left.
Yeah.
And we had the 2-point conversion there. So, yeah.
So Randall had a little better day. 24 of 36, 311, and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So couldn't handle the Vince Tobin defense, but he could handle the Wani one.
Yeah.
Bears leading rusher. They didn't do a lot of rushing.
Guys, Lewis Tillman, 94, right?
Oh, both there, and the second leading rusher, Merrill Hodge.
Ultra back. Oh, Merrill
Hodge, 2 for 15.
The off concussed.
Bears ran the ball. Was Matt Nagy? Was he guest coaching?
John Shoup.
They weren't running. 11 times for 37 yards. One of those was a Kramer scramble for 0 yards.
But they only had 31 completion pass attempts too, so
we're running a lot of opposite plays. It sounded like
a lot of plays.
Herschel led the Eagles in rushing again, 19 for 72.
So Herschel, the Bears played Herschel Walker, Philadelphia Eagle 2 times, the year before and this year. Wow. They play him the next year? By the way, I was at the game the next year. Unless you're done, unless you're still, So the game the next year, was in '93 was the Wendell Davis game. I will refer to the 1995 game, in which I was in attendance, the Alonzo Spellman contract game.
Oh.
Yeah. Because Alonzo Spellman was in his 4th season. The Bears under Wannstedt were still fighting. In fact, in 94, they made the playoffs in Wannstedt's 2nd season, as we know. In 95, they had the same record, 9-7. They didn't make the playoffs. So they had a number of games that, they could go over that season, the game in Cincinnati late in the season that they shouldn't have lost, but a handful of games. Regardless, they had a chance to go to the playoffs. We didn't know when we were at this game, right? Like this is a game where we're alive when this game is going on. So there's a lot to play for, right? And Spellman, who was an absolute underachiever in his 4 seasons, but was an absolute fucking unit physically. He was just a specimen, and obviously a bit of a head case as it would years after his playing career.
So this wasn't the day that he was shirtless in the snowstorm.
No, that was
away from
in 1998. I was in Mesa, Arizona. That happened, watching it on Channel 9 back in Chicago. No, that was after his career, like I said. Yeah. But what happened was he sacked. Was it Rodney Peete? Right? That was because the Randall's gone. Now they got Rodney Peete. I think he sacked Pete 3 times. He just had he was like Jefferson for Ridgemont High in this game. Alonzo Spellman, even though he had been, frankly, a dog up until this game. And I always felt like the Bears won the game, very rewarding. Then they still missed the playoffs because the combination didn't work. And then the next year would be Wannstedt's famous "the pieces are in place," because they're only a year removed from the playoffs. And even though they missed the playoffs, they had the same record, and we got the playoffs too early. And now we signed Brian Cox, and then we signed Alonzo Spellman. And I always say that what Spellman showed them in this game, you always refer to somebody having a contract season. Alonzo just had to show up for this game, and he did, and he got paid, and it was a mistake. So
Mark Hatley standing there at the tunnel with a contract.
Yeah, the Bears director of play.
Right, because we didn't have a general manager, because why would you need one of those?
Yeah. So anyway, glad I got that on the record.
How about this? Who's the leading rusher for the Bears that day?
In 95, Rashaan Salam.
30 for 122.
Yeah, he got 1,000 yards that year. He kept fumbling, but.
Well, the reason I wondered it, I saw the line score first. The Eagles scored in the 4th quarter on a Jerome Henderson 0-yard fumble return. I thought, Rashaan must have fumbled in the end zone.
Had to be. Wow.
And he probably did.
What are you giving him the ball down there at the goal line, Ron Turner?
How about this? For the Philadelphia Eagles, they had a receiver who caught 1 pass for 36 yards. That receiver was Art Monk.
Wow.
I didn't know he ever played for the Eagles.
I didn't either. Herschel Walker, Art Monk. So many surprises when we pull up the Eagles history.
He caught 6 passes for 114 yards for the 95 Eagles. He had played. He only played in 3 games.
That's awesome, though.
But in 95, he played a full season for the Jets and caught 46 passes for 581 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Son of a bitch! I had no idea Art Monk was I knew he was a great goddamn receiver in an era that was still developing. passing wise. But man, I didn't know he was playing that late. It's awesome.
And the Bears took a little break from the Eagles. They wouldn't play again until 1999.
Can't recall. Oh, I do. No. Yeah, Donovan McNabb was a rookie. This is first year Andy Reid coach. First year coach Andy Reid.
Not this game. This game, a Super Bowl winning coach was their quarterback.
But McNabb came in. Doug Peterson is the guy you're talking about, right?
Torrance Small was the only other guy to play quarterback in that game.
Damn!
No Donovan McNabb. Doug Peterson,
but McNabb was
22 of 38, 228, 2 touchdowns.
Here's
Against
the thing.
Who was playing for the Bears?
Cade
McNown.
And Shane. And so here's the thing. This is the draft, 1999. It was McNabb was probably the best quarterback. It's the inverse of the 83 draft. Tim Couch was the first guy taken. I think Akili Smith was taken. The Bears took McNown. The Eagles took McNabb, and they were both like being experimented. But apparently McNabb did not come into this game. I thought I remember that he did, but Gary Crowton and Dick Duran were bringing McNown in, but I think Shane Matthews was the primary quarterback, right? No, Matthews must have gotten hurt. Look at that.
Okay, this is Cade.
Down to the whole game. Yeah,
he went wire to wire.
Yeah,
he threw an 80-yard touchdown pass to Marcus Robinson.
Well, Robinson would catch anything thrown up in the air. He had an incredible year in '99. So this is another, like, both teams are at a low point, but then I think the Eagles quickly got there. This is Andy Reid's first season, and once again that would spark another golden era for them. They may have made the playoffs this year or the next year, which would start their string, and then the Bears. At least we were rid of Dave Wannstedt. So I always say Dick Duran didn't quite just turn things. He at least stopped the bleeding is what he did. So I don't necessarily think too negatively on the Duran era, but a little more competitive. But yeah, I remember that. I remember them squaring off and thinking that we had McNown and they had McNabb.
So they played again a year later, and you finally got your McNown-McNabb matchup.
You'll probably be pleased to know that McNown got knocked out of this game and somebody tackled him and separated his shoulder, I think.
Yeah, it was, what's his name, the linebacker that was always yapping. Hugh
Douglas?
Hugh Douglas.
He also knocked Jim Miller. I think he knocked Jim Miller out of the playoff game in 2001.
He did.
He may have also knocked McNown out of this game.
The 2000, actually, I don't know if I remember that or not. I know he knocked Miller out. I think he also hurt McNabb because I remember liking him after that. The 2000 Bears were not playoff bound in this game. They were 1-6 coming in against the 4-3 Eagles, and they lost 13-9. Another barn burner. 3 Paul Ettinger fourth quarter field goals were not enough.
Rookie Paul Ettinger.
Jim Miller 14 of 34, 128, and an interception. Cade McNown 6 of 9, 49 yards. Oh, if he'd have stayed in, they'd have won. Donovan McNabb 22 of 35, 207, a touchdown.
Yeah, McNabb was taken off.
He ran 5 times for 25 yards. But Darnell Autry, former Bear.
Former Bear. At this point, former Bear. Probably.
Yeah, he started with the Bears, right?
Yeah, I think so. Or maybe
How about
not.
this career? Darnell Autry played for the Bears in '97, and he played for the Eagles in 2000, and he didn't play for anybody in between.
Wow.
He led the Eagles with 37 yards rushing on 14 attempts. Coy Detmer ran 1 for 8. I suppose that was a muffed field goal. I think maybe the holder was running. 1 for 8 for Coy. He didn't throw a pass. And he wouldn't have been in to take the knee at the end unless they were getting really cocky. We're up 4. Bears can't beat us now.
Right.
We could leave them alone in the stadium. They couldn't score a touchdown.
It was pretty bad. Yeah, it was like that. The Duran era I just referenced was kind of dipping at this point, and he could have lost his job after that year and would have, but for the miracle 2001 season the next year.
I don't know how they scored more points. Listen to the receivers the Bears had: Macy Brooks, Eddie Kennison, Kasim Cinceno, Marcus Robinson, Marty Booker, and James Allen. That's a bunch of Pro Bowlers there.
I was high on Macy Brooks. Got to be honest.
So yeah, they play in 2002 in the playoffs.
Yeah, I was at that game. That's the last game in the shithole of the old Soldier Field. It was frustrating. I always think of this game as McNabb up until that point was such a dual threat. Not like Justin Fields, but he was emerging, and this was the game that was actually huge for his career. And the Bears' strategy was make that motherfucker throw you, beat you with his arm. And you know what? He fucking did. I remember at that game, it was like they couldn't quite pressure him, but he didn't tuck and run. And he would so he's holding the ball, and they pressure him a little bit, but he wouldn't run. He'd hang in there, and then he'd throw it, and then he'd complete it. You're like, fuck. I didn't think he could do that, So good on McNabb. He's sort of, I should point out too, it's the third time the Bears and the Eagles now have played the playoffs in the modern era. It's kind of unusual because we referenced my 7-year-old heart getting broken in '79, some validation in the Fog Bowl in '88, and then this get kicked in the nuts again in person. And it was a frustrating game. The Bears' only 2 scores were Ahmad Merritt on an end around, and our guy Jerry Azuma ran back a McNabb pass for a touchdown. So the Bears were technically in the game till the end, but I just remember Philly just punched him in the face. And when Hugh Douglas knocked Miller out, and I think he did knock McNown out in the regular season game the year before. I remember people complaining about it. I'm like, you don't want to be the team that's complaining about that. Don't let it happen. The Bears weren't ready. That was a star-crossed team, much like the '98 Cubs. They were a lot of fun. They were not that good, even though they had home field because of their star-crossed season. And it was Philadelphia's destiny. They would go to the title game for the first time in 4 straight seasons. We're finally breaking through that year, but the score is a lot closer than it indicate.
So the game ends weird. The game ends, the final play of the game was a Sean Landeta safety. And it just says he stepped out of the end zone. So it's did they take a safety on purpose because they were worried that the Bears were going to score 16 points in the last seconds? But when you look at the rushing stats, Sean Landeta, 1 carry for -20. So I would guess the snap flew over his head and he had to run in. Why are they punting on the final play of the game?
Well, I think we could bring things full circle here, Andy, because even though I was at that game, I had forgotten that Sean Landeta was still in the league and in that game. As a youth, I saw Sean Landeta with the iconic whiff, and you and I sort of discovered Sean Landeta was a pretty well-regarded punter in spite of that whiff. And when he came back to Soldier Field in '87, he was messed up, and he was a really good punter. And the '87 game, which we kind of broke down, he was not punting well at all. So I'm kind of leaning into this sort of notion of Sean Landeta, Soldier Field, just fucking with him. It's amazing. I would not have remembered that Sean Landeta was
for 20 seasons. He played with the Giants through the '93 season. Must have got cut. The Rams picked him up. He finished the season with
he won. So he won 2 Super Bowls.
Well, no, because 2 with the Giants. Yeah,
Giants.
Then he was 2 years with the Rams. Actually, 4 because he moved to St. Louis. Then a year with Tampa, a year with Green Bay, 4 with the Eagles, 2 more, went back to St. Louis, loved it so much, and then finished with Philadelphia.
Wow. Yeah. Well, if you're a punter, he was obviously you had to be a good punter. That's not like a place kicker. You don't see punters last
He's no
place
more
kicker. So, yeah.
So that was fun. More a frustrating playoff game, that one, or the one against the Panthers where nobody could catch Steve Smith?
I would say this one because at least that I don't know.
I think that one. I think the Steve Smith game. We felt like they were going to beat the Panthers and they didn't.
Well, yeah, you're right. Even though we had home field, it was false bravado to think the Bears were, like I said, star-crossed. They were playing outside of their projection, frankly. So it's a fun season, and the Eagles made sure it ended.
2004. Here's a matchup for you: the 1-2 Bears against the 3-0 Eagles, and playing quarterback for the Bears that day, Jonathan Quinn.
Oh, no. I don't like to talk about the Jonathan Quinn or the who's the other Todd Collins. Yeah. There's so Jonathan Quinn though to me is the worst because he just mechanically looks so bad. I'm like, how did you survive this long? He was a backup in Jacksonville before he joined the Bears, and it just numbers, mechanics, just like look at his eyes. Like how did you make it this far?
And, he played for Jacksonville. He played for Berlin in the World League.
Okay.
And he played 2 years for the Chiefs, right? Isn't that how he came over with?
Yes, Terry Shea.
Terry Shea. Yeah. Oh, you're gonna love this guy. He played 1 game for us in 2 years with the Chiefs and never threw a pass. Right. He's your
Terry
guy.
Shea, the first year offensive coordinator in the Lovey regime. Lovey was wise enough to can his ass. After one season.
Quinn threw 43 passes in this game. Sacked 4 times. He was 26 of 43, 215, and a touchdown. That's got to all be career highs. Who do you throw the touchdown pass to? Brian Johnson, of course.
Nope. No.
B-R-Y-A-N Johnson. Anything? No.
Not a fan of Brian.
Donovan McNabb threw a touchdown pass to someone you probably have heard of, Terrell Owens. Terrell Owens and Brian Johnson caught the only touchdown passes.
What year? Is this 2004 the game? So that was the 1 year that McNabb finally got them over the hump to the Super Bowl.
Yep. And then
in a shitty Bears.
Then he barfed in the huddle.
Yes.
Way to go, Dad.
Do you remember just how methodical
running the slowest 2-minute drill of all time and barfing in the huddle.
Incredible. Yeah.
Good job.
Well, the Bears gave him a nice challenge that year, at least. They were not that good. It was lovely.
19-9.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Yep.
2007.
I was at this game, and somebody reminded me it was a Sunday night game, and the Bears had no business winning, but they did. And even that's the year after the Super Bowl, the Bears would maybe look good again, but then not. But I just remember they had a goal line stand at the end of the game. That's all I can tell you. That because the Bears, Andy Reid decided to not
a goal line stand. They had a 2-minute. This game is famous. This is Brian Greasey playing quarterback for the Bears, and his headset went out. And on the 2-minute drill, he called all the plays, and the Bears, for the first time all game, roared down the field. He threw a touchdown pass to Muhsin Muhammad with 9 seconds to go. And then in interviews afterwards, he talked about how the headset went out, and the next day the Bears made him say that the headset worked.
I remember
and that he didn't call his own plays.
Holy shit, you're right. So what happened is the Bears made a goal line stand when the arrogant Andy Reid-led Eagles were just going to put the game away. They had a 4-point lead, 16-12. So 16-12, and the Bears defense stopped them, right? Because that last drive had to have been, I think it was like 99 yards, I think. I need to look that up now. That's the memory. Says it was not an end of the game goal line. I just remember there being I found it. It is no, I don't have it right. Do I? Yeah, they started their own 3, except it was after a punt. So never mind.
Yeah.
So some Mandela effect going on. No, not even close. Yeah. I know I was at that game though because it was Sunday night, right? Started night at least.
Well, do you enjoy driving to Philly?
No, that's not it. Jesus Christ! I'll shut up for a minute.
Well, the road trip.
Sunday night game I was at.
I think this was a Sunday night game or the night game. I remember because I can picture it. And it was just one of those games where the Bears were just going to lose, and then all of a sudden they come roaring ass down the field, and you're like,
I got it.
Shit.
My apologies. I jumped the gun. It was the next game. So you're right. Like that game in 2007 was where Brian Greasey got called out on the carpet, and that's okay.
Let's see the last. Let's check out the 2-minute drill here. So yeah, Severio Roca punts the Bears to their 3 with 1:52 to go. Bears are on their 3-yard line. Vet fans are all excited, and then this is what happened.
Right.
Greasey, 11 yards to Des Clark. Incomplete to the original Adrian Peterson. Complete for 9 yards to Adrian Peterson. 9 yards to Devin Hester.
Yep.
Incomplete for the Moose.
They were paying Devin like a receiver,
so
they had to use
with a minute 3, they're still at their own 32. Things are not progressing real fast.
Right.
But then, defensive holding. Wait a minute. Holy shit. Oh, offsetting penalties. Passing complete for Peterson. There was a penalty. Lito Shepard got called for defensive holding. Reuben Brown got called for offensive holding. So I nullified that. Okay. And then a pass to Des Clark for 7 yards. Then finally, let's move the ball. We're on the 39. 25 yards to Bernard Berrien. Then Greasy spikes the ball with 31 seconds to go. Then it says a short pass to Devin for 21 yards. Now they're down to the 15. Greasy spikes the ball with 29 seconds to go. Oh, I guess with 15 seconds to go. Greasy completes a pass to Moose for 15 yards and a touchdown. Robbie Gould makes the extra point, and the Bears win.
With 9 seconds to go. Had a boy, Brian. Yeah, I found it. The next game is the game I was at. It also was. So they're both Sunday night games. And apparently, ESPN couldn't get enough of Bears Eagles.
Who could?
But yeah, it was Sunday night.
Yeah, this one's in Chicago, so you got a better chance to get it this one.
Right. So the game ends on this one, and they had to go for it. So it wasn't Andy Reid being arrogant. That was unfair. Sorry, Andy, to malign you and have my facts wrong. But if you go to the play-by-play on this one, it wasn't the end of the game. But it was a goal line stand, Philadelphia's last drive. The infamous Corral Buckhalter could not punch it in on 4th and 1 with 3 minutes and 40 seconds left. The Bears still needed to get a few first downs to end the game, but that's how that one ended in 2008.
Yeah, they had 1st and goal at the 4. Buckhalter for 3, Tony Hunt for no gain, Buckhalter for no gain. And then Alex Brown tackled Buckhalter for no gain to end
Big fan.
To the Bears then with the ball on the 1. 2-yard rush by Matt Forte. And then how about this for Lovey? He let Kyle Orton throw a pass. Des Clark for 4 yards to get out of the shadow of their end zone. But they got a first down on the next play. Matt Forte, 10 yards. And that didn't salt it over. We still ended up having a punt, but the Eagles had the ball with 17 seconds to go on their own 39.
Yeah, unexpected victory because even though it was only 2 years from the Super Bowl, we were already kind of had recalibrated our expectations. So nice, pleasant surprise to win that night.
2009 at Soldiers Field. This is
Jay
Cutler against Donovan McNabb and Michael Vick.
Oh!
He threw one pass, and he ran once for 34 yards. The Eagles won 24-20.
I got nothing.
LaShawn McCoy touchdown, 10-yard run in the 4th quarter.
Yeah. Bears are retooling with Cutler. They'll be back the next year.
Jay threw 43 times for 171 yards.
He threw a lot.
Seems like a lot for a little. 2010, got to play again. This time,
Michael Vick was the quarterback in 2010. This was the Bears playoff team, and I want to say this was a 3:00 start, so it was like a nationally televised Sunday afternoon game. And Vick had served his penance, and the Eagles, both teams were good, right? Let me pull this game up.
Yeah, the Bears were both were 7-3 coming in the game, and
both would go to the playoffs. I think because some people forget that Michael Vick did have a second act with Philadelphia, and this was the one season. I don't remember anything about the game. I just remember looking forward to it, being very excited. It was cold as fuck, if I'm not mistaken, even though it was only late November. And apparently it was a pretty interesting game.
Bears had a 31-13 lead in the 4th quarter and won 31-26.
Okay.
Let's see. Vic, 29-44 for 333 and 2 touchdowns and 44 yards on the ground. Jay, 14-21, 247, 4 touchdown passes, no interceptions.
Damn.
Touchdown
146
passes to Earl Bennett, Johnny Knox, Earl Bennett, and Greg Olson.
Yeah, the Bears were picking up some steam at that point. I remember it being a very sort of a fun point of the season. And because it was a good challenge, because Philadelphia was good. And, we talked about it before with Michael Vick, because Urlacher's still on this team, that Michael Vick regardless of like what you think about him or like whether or not he, did enough time or whatever. He was a great, unique player that had some real high success. He shoved it up Green Bay's ass in a playoff game when he was really young. He never did anything to the Bears. In fact, I always sort of attribute like a lot of Brian Urlacher making himself Hall of Famers constantly kicking the shit out of Michael Vick. Yeah. I don't think anybody sort of could say that like that. Like that's like where it always diverged. Vic hardly ever did anything against the Bears, and it seemed like the Bears always put him in his place, and not a lot of teams seem to always be able to do that.
Michael Vick was the first road quarterback to ever win a playoff game at Lambeau Field.
That's right, and that was like early in his career too. I was like, he was only like 23, 24 then. He was like, we watch Justin Fields now. I mean, it's similar. Vic was very much like that because Fields doesn't strike me as freakishly huge, but he is. Vic seems freakishly huge, and so when he was on the run, I was like, Jesus, what is this guy?
Yeah, and I would say Justin is significantly bigger than Mike Vick.
I know, but it doesn't look like it. Well, but that's my own problem.
Greenberg talks about that on this podcast. It's the baby face.
But I don't see his baby face when he's got a helmet on and I'm
Justin
watching
Fields
the game.
is 3 inches taller and 25 pounds heavier than Mike Vick was listed.
I believe it. I'm not even saying my perception is spot on.
I think part of Vic was left-handed, and that just looks cool.
Yeah, like there was like a lot that was just really
and he could throw the ball
weird
like 90 yards in the air with a flick of his wrist.
Oh, fucking A. He was an incredible college player. So, yeah, this is old man Michael Vick now. He's like 32, 33, but he's all of a sudden find himself with an opportunity in the post-McNabb era to take another Eagles team to the playoffs, which I think he did. But once again, Brian Urlacher and the Bears put him in his place. So
they played again the next year. It was Jay against Vick.
And, I don't remember that.
What's the date on that? The Bears rallied. They scored 10 points in the fourth quarter. Earl Bennett touchdown pass from Jay and a Robbie Gould field goal, and they beat the Eagles 30-24.
I have no recollection of that one. Even though these are still good Bears teams that kept stubbing their toe when they had a chance to make the playoffs. That was Pete Cutler too. I mean, that game 2011, that's November. That might have been the week before he got hurt against San Diego in the season when he was on an MVP trajectory, I swear, at that point in that season. So
the next time they played,
I remember this game. So, Marc Trestman almost took the Bears to the playoffs, but you'll remember that like somehow even after like the kicking the field goal on second down in November in Minnesota, like they won like games they were supposed to win in early December. One was in Cleveland. And that was like they were at a point where, well, it doesn't matter what you do these next 2 weeks because it's going to come down to it just worked out that way. Yeah. The Bears had 2 weeks where you could maybe establish some divisional supremacy, plant a seed, and start embarking on a playoff domination, or just gear up for that Green Bay game, which you would eventually lose anyway at the end. And so it didn't matter even though these are 2 really good teams, the Eagles were good that it was a Sunday night game, another Sunday night game. People love Eagles and Bears Sunday night. The Bears did not have to win that game, and they
played like it.
Looked like it.
Yeah, this was week 16 or week 15, I guess.
Bears are 8-6 going in, so are the Eagles. The Eagles had more incentive, I'm assuming, because they were fighting for a legit playoff spot. Bears were in a watered-down division, and the Packers were getting healthy because Rodgers was just getting healthy.
So everybody remembers the back-to-back 50-point drubbings. The Bears allowed 50 points in back-to-back games with a bye in between in Trestman's second season. But do you remember that they gave up 54 points to the Eagles in the second-to-last game of his first season, the good season? 54-11. Yep. Oh, thank God they went for 2.
Yep.
Actually, they didn't. No, wait. They had the safety.
I don't even know. It was 21-0 in the first
quarter.
Yeah,
they went for 2. It was 33-11, and you got to get that to 33-13. But they got it. It was 33-9, and you needed to get it to 22 points somehow. So he did. Went for 2. Brandon Marshall caught a 6-yard touchdown pass from Jay, and then Jay threw a 2-pointer to Earl Bennett. Whew.
Yeah. Yeah, I was wrong. It was just a one game. Somehow in my head, I had convinced myself that somehow the Bears had the luxury of a 2 week. That doesn't matter. It's just the one, and that was the one. And
down 40-11 in the fourth quarter. In a minute and a half, these two things happened. Brandon Boykin returned an interception, 54 yards, and then Bryce Brown had a 65-yard run for the Eagles. So
no, all on national TV. Well, hey, even in the Ditka era, when they were winning divisions, they would get humiliated on Monday nights against the 49ers and such. So,
you know who the quarterback for the Eagles was?
In this game in 2013? No, who?
Nick Foles.
Oh, wow.
21-25 for 230 and 2 touchdowns.
And this
was the year he had the ridiculous,
that's his first go-around with
2013.
Right?
Yeah, he threw 27 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. This is the Chip Kelly Eagles.
Yep. God, I can't believe it's that long ago. It seems like yesterday that Chip Kelly was swashbuckling his way from the college arena. And they were good that year, but then he flamed out. It must have been his first year too. He must have been one of the candidates for the Bears around the time that Bruce Arians. Maybe it wasn't his first year. Maybe it was his second year. But it was Trestman's first year, and then it was Bruce Arians was the consolation prize for Arizona. No, it was his first year too. A lot of offensive coaches out there.
Yeah.
The 2013 season. So.
2016, the Eagles came in early in the season.
Whatever. John Fox era. I black out. I got nothing.
They won 29-14.
Still have Jay racking up numbers.
And Brian Hoyer. They both played in this one. Carson Wentz, quarterback for the Eagles. Threw a touchdown pass.
We're butting up on the contemporary era here.
Connor Barth was kicking for the Bears. Eddie Royal had a 65-yard touchdown return. Future Bear Trey Burton caught a 2-yard touchdown pass from Carson Wentz. Great stuff.
Of course you did. Yeah.
Then 2017, Bears went to
Another
Philly.
John Fox team.
And they got 31-3. The Bears were 3-7. No, 3-7. The Eagles were 9-1. Kind of like what's going to happen on Sunday.
This was an Eagles team that actually would win their first NFL championship in how many seasons, folks? Since 1960, and we're going 1917, so 57 years. So nice of the Bears to participate in that historical procession of Philadelphia on their way to their first ever Super Bowl championship.
Who scored the Bears' only 3 points of the game?
It's not Connor Barth?
No. This is a year later.
Was it Cairo?
Yes, it's Cairo Santos.
First
one game he was actually healthy for that year. He got hurt, and they had to get another kicker.
Yeah,
like he replaced some slappy, and then he pulled his hammy, and they had to get rid of him, and then
So just like Nick Foles torched the Bears and then left, and then came back to Philadelphia before coming to the Bears. Like Cairo scored 3 points.
Well,
the Eagles
it really. I mean, the injury caused a whole set of dominoes to fall. If Cairo stays healthy through the season, then in 2018, Cairo is the Bears' kicker. Instead, because he got hurt and they kept going through kickers, they went out and they signed the great Cody Parkey.
Segue.
And so go a year later.
From 2017 to 2018.
To a playoff game. Actually, you go 2 years later because it's January of 2019. But
you're right. You're right.
Go to the next season.
The fourth playoff game in the modern era between the Bears and the Eagles.
And there we are in beautiful Soldiers Field. The Bears with their high-powered offense. At least people thought it was. They scored a lot of points. What people figured out later was that a lot of that was the defense either setting up touchdowns or scoring them themselves. And Cody Parkey would had all the Bears' points in the first half. 36-yard field goal and 29-yard field goal. The Bears led 6-3 at halftime.
Cody's like, this is going to be my day.
And they vaunted Vic Fangio defense. was doing its job and keeping the great Nick Foles off the board.
For the first 90% of the game, yes.
But then in the third quarter, Dallas Goedert got a 10-yard pass from Foles. And now suddenly the Bears are down 10-6, and everybody's starting to poop themselves. Parkey made another field goal to make it 10-9. And then they weren't back-to-back drives.
No.
Yeah, they were back-to-back drives.
And well, you do have to say this for Mitch, like he did engineer a go-ahead fourth quarter drive and capped it off with that touchdown pass.
It was a great pass. The touchdown pass to Allen Robinson was a great pass, and the whole drive, Mitch was really good. And we're like, haha, we got this.
Right.
So the Bears drive down the field, and they score with 5:56 into the quarter. So there's 9-something left.
9:04 left.
And the Bears are up 15-10 with the Fangio defense. They're like, got this one. Don't got to worry about this.
Yeah, sure.
And I would guess the Eagles had the ball twice after that.
Unless,
but once again, this happened a couple of times in the season where the Bears had that very good defense, and all they needed was a stop late in a game, and the Bears win. And I don't remember off the top of my head the other times they had failed, but they get to the playoffs, and they did it again. And this one ended up with, on a fourth down, Golden Tate caught a 2-yard pass from Nick Foles. They went for 2, and they didn't make it. So the Bears have the ball with 56 seconds to go, and they are down by a point. And Mitch got him into field goal range. And I seem to remember that but who did he miss? The last play they ran before the field goal, he had somebody wide ass open in the end zone.
Maybe. And that would be the story of the rest of his career.
And we're like, no big deal. We're in field goal range.
Right.
So that would have been great if we got that touchdown pass, but Cody's going to make this. So Cody Parkey tries to kick a 43-yarder.
Yes, let's put our faith in a grown man named Cody.
And he kicks, and he makes it. But he barely makes it. And it turns out that Doug Peterson, who had quarterbacked the Eagles against the Bears many years before, had called timeout right before the snap.
Oh, he made the first one.
He made it, but he barely made it. And I know what happened on the second one. I know what he did. He thought, holy shit, I barely made it. And he kicked the second one lower. And I know that people have gone back and looked at the Zapruder film and said that he didn't get, but one of those fat-ass Eagles got their fingertips on it.
Yep.
And Cody hit the upright, and then he hit the crossbar, and it
double
fell.
Doink.
But the best is the video of that is Staley is under the goalpost, and he passes out. He falls flat on his face, and it's
very heartfelt.
If it wasn't so tragic, it's hilarious to see him collapse in the end zone.
And that's the double doink would enter the lexicon. Just to fill in the gaps, too, you're right, because in my memory I thought Mitch takes them down, and then the defense can't hold them, and then Mitch takes them down again. There was a drive in between, because after Mitch had that touchdown to Allen Robinson, Philadelphia did have a 2-minute drive where they picked up one first down, about 8 plays, and then the Bears did go 4 and out. I'm just going to say, they got the ball 7:02 and the lead at their own 26. Boy, it would have been nice to ice that game, but they didn't. And then, after the defense then finally totally did let the Bears, let the Eagles come down. Mitch did bring him down there.
So Mitch for the game, 26 of 43 for 303 yards and a touchdown.
That's got to be the only Bear quarterback to ever throw 300 yards in a playoff game, by the way. I haven't looked that up, but I will. Sure it is.
And now, looking back, it just has Nagy's fingerprints all over it. The Bears threw 43 passes, and they only attempted 18 runs.
And Jordan Howard was good.
Jordan Howard only carried the ball 10 times for 35 yards.
No.
Taylor Gabriel had 2 end-arounds. Mitch had 3 scrambles. So, they ran the running, and then they somehow got a carry for Benny Cunningham. Tariq is fine, Cohen, and Taco Mizell got a run.
Jesus Christ. What is he doing? It's his first playoff game, and he's like breaking.
But he got the job in the first place because he was available to take the job because he was calling the plays. The only year he was offensive coordinator for the Chiefs. And the Chiefs blew a huge lead to Marcus Mariota in Alex Smith's last game with the Chiefs.
Yep. Which is what made him available.
Right. And they ran the ball like 8 times in the second half.
Yes. They completely ignored what he was actually doing the day before he would become available.
You would think he would be like, because, I mean, Pace had flown to Kansas City because he was going to interview him the next day, so he's there watching the game. I would have been like, yeah, we don't need to stick around for the interview tomorrow. I mean, look at this dumb shit. No. But instead, he's like, ooh, good, now he's available, we can hire him. Like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah. Think about why he's available, maybe. Yeah, it's very much in sharp relief when you see those numbers, just the rushing carries.
The other thing that happened in this game was because the Bears lost, Vic was available to interview with the Broncos.
Yep.
If they had won, they'd be getting ready. They were going to go to play the Rams the next week.
Right.
He would have been busy. He wouldn't have been able to interview. And John Elway admitted when he hired Vic that Vic wasn't real high on their list. So they most likely would, if he hadn't been available, they most likely would have just hired somebody else and not interviewed Vic. So Vic would have been around to still save the defense for the next couple of years from Nagy. But that didn't happen. Then how about the fact that they one of the guys on Vic's staff was with the Bears was Brandon Staley, who I think Vic technically made his defensive coordinator with the Broncos, but the Bears could have kept him. He could have been their defensive coordinator. So not even any self-scouting going on in that building.
Thanks. I feel a lot better. Thank you.
But that's not the last time these teams played.
Yeah, who cares? They played the year after that playoff game.
They played in 2019, and the Nagy Bears were struggling a little bit, and they went to Lincoln Financial Field, and they got beat 22-14. This time Carson Wentz was playing quarterback. Mitch, not quite as good a game. 10 for 21 for 125 yards. This time the Bears ran the ball 18 times again, but they didn't run very many plays because they didn't do shit.
Right, 39 plays. And even Mitch's 10 for 21 is better than Mike Phipps's 13 for 30 in a goddamn playoff game.
So we would be remiss if we didn't resume our breakdown of Eagles coaches to wrap this up.
Because did we stop at Buddy?
We quit with Buddy, and we missed. You know who succeeded Buddy?
Wait, let me guess.
One of the greatest coaches in Jets history. Yes, Richie Kotite.
Who actually, which is funny because you're right, he is absolutely an emblem for New York Jets futility, or maybe not. They have so many. He took the Eagles he actually won a playoff game, which Buddy never did with the Eagles.
He was 36-28.
And he also beat Jim Mora Sr. in the playoffs to do it. But yeah, somehow he flamed out after he was done with Philly. He goes to New York, and then the media or whatever, like he became like a goof. But I'm like, hey, he won a playoff game. Ellie Sherman never won a playoff game. So
do you remember who replaced Rich Kotite?
What year we? Yeah. Let me guess. So he was gone by '95 by the Alonzo Spellman game. Is that Ray Rhodes?
Ray Rhodes.
No.
Who won Coach of the Year in '95.
Wow. Okay, the Bears beat him that year. But Rhodes' tenure at the Eagles with the Packers was after his first tenure at the Eagles. Okay. Boy, I like the challenge here because I couldn't. I don't think I could muster a guess.
Yeah, he got fired by the Eagles in '98, and he coached the Packers one and only season in '99.
But then Andy Reid came right after him.
Then they got Andy Reid. Things picked up a little bit.
And then did Doug Peterson come after Andy Reid?
There were two coaches in between. Chip must have got fired with a game
Chip,
because Pat Shermer was an interim. Chip was 26-21 in parts of 3 seasons.
Even he had a winning record, and they got rid of him.
So after not going to the playoffs forever, between Buddy took him 3 times, Kotite took him once, Ray Rhodes took him twice. Andy Reid coached 19 playoff games there. He won 10 of them.
Wow.
He played in 3 straight NFC Championship games.
4. He won 1.
4, and they won 1. Okay.
Yeah, because he lost. Because I remember thinking McNabb, he was like, yeah, they lost 3 in a row.
Chip Kelly took them to the playoffs, and they lost.
Oh, wow.
Doug Peterson took them to the – obviously, Doug won the Super Bowl with them. And Nick Sirianni took them to the playoffs last year. Every coach, including Buddy, every coach since Fred Bruni, I guess, has taken the Eagles to the playoffs.
And they've – yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 coaches in a row. That's relatively novel for the NFL.
That's uncanny.
Bears can't say that.
And I will say, too, that certainly illustrates that for the last now that they've won a Super Bowl as well, and they've been in one where they've lost, that in the last 40 years, the Eagles have had a better, tail of the tape over the Bears. However, that's not how it works. They go back to 1933. So if you go back to 1933, and even if you just isolate on Super Bowl eras, they've both won a Super Bowl, and the Eagles have been in 3. But then you have to consider the Eagles were ass for, they won 2 out of 3 championships. Prior to that, the Bears won 6. So even with their recent success throughout the span of their history, this is yet another franchise that we can look down our noses about. But, if the Bears don't get their shit straight soon, can't say it about the Eagles are basically one more Super Bowl appearance.
Which might happen this year.
Yeah, if they win it this year. Yeah, I mean, again, they go back to 33, so you have to look at the whole span. They have some making up to do historically.
We've won 10 NFL titles.
Yeah, but in the last 40 years, they've pushed ahead of us, although that wasn't the case a few years ago. Because until they won one, they were every bit as woeful as all the other teams that we, are surprised to see are as woeful as the Bears. So, I'll be out there on Sunday, by the way, so I'm looking forward to seeing Fields and Hurts.
Yeah.
Fields. Yeah.
The Eagles have been around for 90 years, and they have won 23 playoff games.
It's more than the Bears, I bet.
Oh, we'll have to see.
Awfully close, because the Bears, you remember, Dallas won 6 championships, but only 7 playoff games.
It's not close.
And Ditka won 10 or 6 playoff games.
Bears have been around for 103 seasons. They've won 17.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Yeah. Bears happened to do a lot of their playoffing back when there was only 1 playoff game.
17. Jesus. All-time leading passer. You know these, right? Because I know if you know Harold Carmichael is their all-time leading receiver.
I've looked it up. Yeah, it's McNabb who passed Jaworski, I believe. But right, yeah.
And Shady McCoy is their all-time leading rusher, only 6,700 yards. That's kind of sad. Carmichael, 8,900 yards. It's not. I mean, it's very impressive for the Bears, but for real teams, that's not.
And maybe borderline ahead of his time when he retired, but he's been retired for 45 years, so maybe not so much.
6'7", 6'8".
Was he that tall?
6'8".
He's not a Hall of Famer, right?
He is.
No.
He's in the Hall of Fame.
He is. Oh, all right. Well,
he was the 1980 Walter Payton Man of the Year. Who knew they were giving out the Walter Payton Man of the Year while Walter was still playing? That? I have a feeling it was just called the Man of the Year at the time. But
yeah.
He went to Southern University.
Been
so
what
Walter,
is Southern University?
He was
it's a
HBCU.
Yep. HBCU, sorry. Southern, okay, yeah, just Southern. That's not, where is that? Okay.
It's in Missoula, Montana.
7th round pick out of the Eagles. 1971.
Southern has at least 2 Hall of Famers because they're the player there with their all-time highest AV, whatever that stands. I forget what it's saying, but they're basically it's the number that Pro Football Reference puts on people, was Aeneas Williams.
Oh wow!
So he's in the Hall of Fame. So there's at least. Let's see. Does it bold him? Oh, it does. Let's see. We got anybody else?
Very nice.
Oh, it doesn't.
The
Hall of Famers in bold. I can't tell from this.
Harold Carmichael only led the league in receptions once, the same year that he led in yards, and it was 1973. He was a Philly the whole time, but I'm not going to begrudge him. You know, how can I, a Bears fan, whose all-time leading receiver is Johnny Morris, begrudge Harold Carmichael being in the Hall of Fame with just 15 yards shy of 9,000 yards receiving?
Southern University is in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, I figured it has to be in the South. You said Montana. I
Hence
almost
the name of the
scoffed.
university. Yes. Well, I mean, Northwestern isn't really Northwest.
Well, that's true. It's actually east, if anything, of Chicago. By the way, Harold Carmichael, the only time he finished in MVP voting, 6th in 1979. At the age of 30, even though he only had 52 receptions for 872 yards, which would rank like respectively 4th.
Yeah, why did he make the Hall of Fame? Because he's tall?
Yeah, I mean,
tall guy.
He made 4 Pro Bowls, and he was AP's second team once.
And that's it.
And an MVP, he finished 6th. So, okay, Philly, you got a cheapie there.
He was on the Hall of Fame all 1970s team.
Well, he should have been probably, right? Him and Swan and Drew Pearson and Ahmad Rashad.
Maybe it was the 2 games he played for the Cowboys in 1984 that put him over the top.
I still can't believe Herschel Walker is playing for the Philadelphia Eagles as late as 1994.
It's all them sit-ups he did.
Yeah, and the Bears and Eagles really did. They played a lot, like, for being non-divisional opponents. You know, we went over it in case you missed it. Like, there are chunks of like 4 years in a row, like different areas where there's 4 years, Bears and Eagles playing again.
Eagles have 9 retired numbers.
They're like the anti-Steelers, right? Because the Steelers only have the weird 2.
Yeah.
So what are their numbers?
2 quarterbacks.
Jaworski,
McNabb, and Steve Van Buren.
Oh, of course. Van Buren was the quarterback in 48 and 49 and 47 when they lost the Cardinals. But yeah,
1 running back.
Is it? Wait. It's not Wilbur Montgomery. Isn't that's not Shady McCoy? Is it? Who the hell's your running back?
Oh no, not running back. Sorry. He's a defensive back. I don't know why I said running back. Defensive back.
Is it Andre Waters? No.
It's Hall of Famer Brian Dawkins.
Yes, I knew there was a guy. I couldn't think of his name.
So what did this guy play? I don't even know. Another defensive back, better known for once doing a Sun Bowl with Pat Summerall and Burt Reynolds.
Tom Brookshire is a Philadelphia. He's an Eagle legend.
Yep.
He must have
been.
That's
why he got it. Was from that broadcast. Like, we should retire Brookie's number.
He was probably on that 60 Eagles team, is my guess.
Palmer Edward Retzlaff had his number.
Okay.
Retired. Ed Retzlaff.
Okay. Right.
Good old number 44.
He was an Inkman.
And then let's see. Are all these other guys going to be defensive? No. Yes. 4 defensive players, one of whom I've never heard of. Big Ox, Al Wistert. But then three guys you have heard of, and we talked about on this. We talked about all 3 of them on this.
Concrete Charlie.
Yes, but Bednarik, good old number 60, and then
Reggie White,
the good old number 92, and
did they retire Jerome Brown's number after he died?
Jerome Brown's number.
He was a good player. He died young. He's not a Hall of Famer. He played at Miami for Jimmy Johnson in the 80s.
Yeah. He was first team All-Pro in his last 2 seasons.
Oh man, that is a pretty tragic.
He died at 26.
Oh man, yeah. You know what? That probably fucked Buddy Ryan's coaching success more than anything. Well, you already died. I'm sorry. When did he die? When did Jerome Brown die?
His last season was 91. Let's see, when did he die?
So a little
he
bit.
He died June of 92. So before training camp.
The window was closing. That had nothing to do with the window.
And Reggie was gone, right?
Oh, Reggie, his first year in Green Bay was 93 because that was the first year of free agency.
Okay,
remember?
So Reggie was there for that one season.
He was for 92, which was Rich Kotite finally taking the Eagles to a playoff victory. But Jerome Brown was already dead, is what you're saying?
Yes. So they lost Jerome Brown and Reggie White, basically both in 92. At the end of the year,
months. Yeah,
Reggie went.
That's true because Reggie obviously was at his peak.
I don't know. Reggie White's in the Hall of Fame. Do we think he deserved it?
Well, Harold Carmichael's in.
I mean, let's see what he did here. He was defensive rookie. He was second. He was runner for defensive rookie of the year. Didn't even win it.
Subjective.
Second year, he was first team All-Pro and went to Pro Bowl. His third year, he was defensive player of the year, first team All-Pro, and went to the Pro Bowl. Then he was second in defensive player of the year voting, first team All-Pro, went to the Pro Bowl. The next year, fourth in defensive player of the year voting. It's clearly falling off. First team All-Pro, went to a Pro Bowl. In 1990, didn't even get a defensive player of the year vote. He was just All-Pro and went to the Pro Bowl. 91, third in defensive player of the year, All-Pro and a Pro Bowl. 92, eighth defensive player of the year. Second team All-Pro, went to the Pro Bowl. Then he went to Green Bay, second in defensive player of the year voting, second team All-Pro, Pro Bowl. Then eighth, second team All-Pro and a Pro Bowl. Then third defensive player of the year voting, first team All-Pro and a Pro Bowl. Then now he's 35 years old, second team All-Pro, went to Pro Bowl. 36 years old, second team All-Pro, went to the Pro Bowl. 37 years old, wins defensive player of the year, was fifth in comeback player of the year. I would like to know who the other four were. Yes. First team All-Pro, went to the Pro Bowl, and then he retired. And then, do you remember this? Because I didn't. He returned to play 1 year for the Carolina Panthers in 2000.
He started 16 games and didn't do anything.
And then he forgot to put his CPAP machine on, and no more.
Wow. We've mentioned a lot of players that I think just through the brutality of football just died young. Just even tonight, like Andre Waters was mentioned, he died young. Andre was known; he's an Eagle, so it's relevant. He was known as a headhunter, though. He was, I'm not going to call him a dirty player. I'm speaking a little bit, but he was a hard hitter. Died young. Todd Bell, he died young. Dave Dewerson was mentioned at some point tonight. There is a fucking toll. And Reggie, it was shocking. You said like sleep apnea, but you do wonder, like, that stuff. Look how long he played. I mean, he was a 24-year-old rookie in '85. That's because he was a USFL player. But every year from his rookie year, as you point out, all the way through his age 37 season, he got recognition, and that's insane for football. So that's just insane. Even if all those awards you put, they're all subjective. Obviously, you're doing that for 15 years. And there's
he went to the Pro Bowl 13 times in 14 years, and the only time he didn't go was when he was a 39-year-old kind of coming back for the Panthers.
I mean, I do have to suggest that his Defensive Player of the Year award as a 37-year-old in 1980 might have been a little bit of sentimental, but still, the fact that it could even be discussed is
he had 16 sacks in '98.
What the fuck? Maybe that's why he died young. He must have been juiced at his old age.
13, 18, 21, 18, 11, 14, 15, 14, 13, and only 8.
That was his fourth highest.
12, 8.5, 11, 16, and then 5.5 in his comeback.
And he did still record 5.5 after taking a year off and coming back in 2000. 5.5 sacks for the Panthers. Yeah, not much you can say there. I'm glad we're talking about him in the context of the Eagles and not the Packers.
This is ridiculous. As a defensive end, in his in his rookie year, he had 100 tackles as a defensive end. Then he had 98 the next year, 76, 133 when he went in 1988. 133 tackles as a defensive end. Then 123. And then he had 100 again. These are all in Buddy's defense.
Yep.
Well, not 85, but
91 was Kotite's first year, but yeah, effectively.
Then he goes to the Packers, and his sack numbers are still high, but he gets more realistic defensive end tackle numbers, like 49, 42, 39. But 133 tackles. Yikes.
Yeah, that was probably a pretty good marriage, him and Buddy. That was right in the peak of his career. But it's still, who plays that long after starting at 24? So that itself is pretty ridiculous.
Players whose career was of similar quality and shape. J.J. Watt.
I believe it.
Muhammad Wilkerson. Actually, I looked at this. Richard Dent. So 3 years for a career. Here's the guys career-wise that they compare to Reggie White. Bruce Smith, Michael Strahan, Julius Peppers, Bear, John Randall, Carl Eller, Jason Taylor, Alan Page, Bear, Chris Dolman, Randy White, and Kevin Williams of the Cowboys. So that's pretty good if you're on that list on Reggie's page.
Right, no doubt.
It's not like Reggie is being compared to you. These are the guys who get compared to Reggie. That's what you accomplished there.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know why God couldn't have told him to play for the Bears. That would have been nice. Actually, I know God probably told him to play for the Bears, but the Bears were like, would you like to play for $17 and some parking passes?
Well, not to make too fine a point on it, but you could actually point, you talk about the luck of Favre and Rodgers, but Reggie White signing with the Packers in 93, as much as anything, really turned their fortunes around, from which they still sup on 30 years later. Because 1993 was the advent of modern free agency. And he was like the very first guy to do it. And it was also unique because he was an African-American going up to Green Bay, where we already talked about like James Lofton, like there were like guys, it was not necessarily the most hospitable environment, if you're self-aware. And he made it work. And those motherfuckers have been the beneficiaries of that. I mean, ever since. As long as they give Reggie some credit, I suppose, because it did make Green Bay also like Sean Jones showing up in Green Bay. Like it did make, it wasn't just a place where, African American players were drafted and resigned to. He went there, kind of opened the door, and that was, it was kind of an iconic free agent signing, I would say. Sorry to give the Packers credit. I'm still annoyed by it. I mean, why didn't he sign with the Bears? Who did we sign? Craig Hayward?
I was just looking to see who the Bears' 93 free agent signings were.
I'll tell you, Craig Hayward, Andy Heck, which was not a bad signing, right? Is Andy Heck on that list? They didn't go big, though. Fucking Ron Wolf and Mike Holmgren went big. I don't know who else the Packers signed that year, but I do remember Sean Jones, who was like a long-time Houston Oilers big defensive end. Like all of a sudden, he shows up in Green Bay.
The Bears signed Ironhead Hayward.
Yep.
Anthony Blaylock.
Yeah, defensive back. Maybe not Andy Heck till the next year. I mean,
the Bears traded their 8th rounder for Joe Kane.
Okay, going number 59.
Let's see. They traded down to. They made a trade with the Packers, and they drafted Al Fontenot.
Albert Fontenot. Yeah, not Jerry Fontenot. Albert Fontenot, the defensive lineman, not the offensive lineman.
And they had traded Jay Hilgenberg in '92 to Cleveland, and they picked Todd Perry with his pick. Oh, great!
I remember Todd Perry, number 75.
Oh, this was a big. We got a big trade though. One of the most famous trades in Bears history. The Bears traded John Roper, Kelly Blackwell,
and
Marcus Paul, who's also dead, in exchange for Vincent Smith, Barry Minter, and 2 Texas draft picks. I don't know who those ended up, or 2 Dallas draft picks. I don't know who those ended up being, but I'm sure they were great.
We just know how John Roper's behavior shaped that trade. Was it John Roper or Ron Cox? It was one of those two. Roper.
Well, the famous thing about Roper, and I think we told this when we talked about the Cowboys, was he fell asleep in a meeting in Dallas, and Jimmy cut him.
Yep.
And they
After
asked
the Bears trade, that's what it was.
Jimmy got asked. He said, so is that a rule that if a player falls asleep in a meeting? And he said, well, it depends who it is. He said, if John Roper falls asleep in a meeting, you cut him. If Troy Aikman falls asleep in a meeting, you wake him up and ask him if he wants a pillow. Which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, I got that confused because Roper, the trade was the Bears got also like by the time the Bears had drafted Roper and Cox, we were already in that malaise of post like they're just interchangeable linebackers, like whatever. And then like Vincent Smith was more of the same. It didn't matter. it was just funny to learn that after John Roper was given a lifeline to play with a first-class organization that was on their way to a Super Bowl, that he fucked it up by falling asleep in a meeting. So,
and he's from Texas. He went to A&M. You would have thought he'd have been excited about being home, but no.
Yeah, no.
Well, actually, because you brought up Ron Cox, was the biggest free agent signing of the Wani era Brian Cox?
Had to be. Yeah. That was the split. Well, I mean, you said 93 already. Hayward. I mean, Andy Heck was a signing. 95, 90. I mean, yeah, absolutely was, because they were, that was it. Had to be. What a moron. Yeah, I'm mad, too, again, about that 97 Bears team that totally could have. They won like 3 out of the last 5 games. I forgot about it. I just remember watching the Sunday night game against the Rams. The only game, like 3 of the games Dave Wannstedt won were like in vain, that sacrificed one of the best chances the Bears had at a great draft pick. Granted, that was the Peyton Manning draft. They ended up like 12th and 98. They got courtesy in this, but still cursed by that.
Well, let's see. Could be our last thing.
People are getting tired of 2 hours of Eagles talk.
Yeah, we're not really talking about the Eagles anymore.
That's right.
So players that obviously Peyton Manning went first overall. Then Ryan Leaf. Then Andre Wadsworth.
Okay.
So the Cardinals might want their pick back too, because then fourth was Charles Woodson.
Right.
To the Raiders. Then the Bears took Curtis Penis.
All right, so the Bears were only fifth. So the only guys they missed it. Well, they wouldn't have gotten Manning. They may have gotten Wadsworth. All right.
They would have drafted Charles Woodson. Don't you think they would have picked Charles Woodson? Your defensive head coach would have got a look at him and said, "That's the dude I want."
Yeah.
Then the Packers would have never had him. Actually, the Packers probably still would have had him. He would have gone from the Bears.
That was at the end of his career, though. But you're right. And then, of course, you're seeing guys after. Pretty good players.
I know they talked about drafting Kyle Turley. He ended up having a pretty good career, but it was weird. So that's probably good. Although anybody would have been better than Curtis Penis. Greg Ellis was a pretty good player. Fred Taylor was a good running back. Much better than Curtis.
Yes, he was.
Let's see. Jason Peter was in Nebraska. He went nuts and tried to kill somebody.
Well, you skipped over Keith Brooking to KO Spikes. Those were good players for a while. Kevin Dyson, who almost scored that touchdown against in the Super Bowl. Robert Edwards, who hilariously blew out his knee in a beach volleyball game in the offseason.
No, it was a sand touch football game at the Pro Bowl. It was an NFL sanctioned event.
Oh, okay.
But then the guy who went 21 is probably the guy who most of the teams on this list wish they had picked.
Yep.
Randy Moss went 21.
Oh. Went on the highest drafted MAC player, who would go on to have probably the most incredible rookie season for a wide receiver.
And it's funny because the Cowboys almost took him at 8, and he lasted till 21. I wonder how many times Jerry tried to trade back into the first round to get him.
And oddly enough, Randy never did make it back to the Cowboys.
Yeah, you would have thought, given
imagine the Raiders
love for him.
So I guess it wouldn't have mattered if Wannstedt won those.
Yeah, it would have. They would have had Charles Woodson.
Well, Charles Woodson, but then it still wouldn't have mattered because they didn't fire him after that year, and he was still back. And Charles Woodson would probably not end up in the Hall of Fame because he was stuck with the Bears and Dave Wannstedt.
Yeah, I'd been fine with that. He went to Michigan, so screw him. He can rot.
Good point.
Yeah, no Hall of Famers after the first round in that draft. Pfft. All they had was Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson, Randy Moss, and Alan Faneca.
Well,
just four Hall of Famers.
Just 4 in a draft in which the Bears had the 5th pick. I mean, I could understand if the first 4 picks were those.
Well, they also had the 35th pick. Tony Parrish. He wasn't bad.
Okay, right.
He wasn't great, but he wasn't bad. 3rd round, they took some bum named Olin Kreutz.
Not bad. Who had to actually beat out Casey Wegman in training camp to be the center, and Wegman ended up going to Kansas City and having a decent career. But
4th round, they took Alonzo Mays.
Oh,
yeah, that's great.
Who they later traded for some draft picks. I think Mays was like a head case that would have been he was a first round talent that Wannstedt thought he could do something with. I remember Alonzo Mays. It was great.
Then they took, sixth round, they took the longest tenured Bear ever.
Oh, Pat Manley.
Patrick Manley.
Pretty good draft, actually. Good on you, Mark Hatley.
Well, out of 7, he had 8 picks, and he got 2 players. That's not... 3. Tony Parrish.
Yeah.
And he got a long snapper. I mean, come on. People love Patrick Manley, but...
Yes, he blew the top 5 draft pick, but for a barely Mr. Irrelevant, he got the longest tenured player in Bears history. So,
yes.
No, you're right.
His last 2 picks were the best: Chad Overhauser and Moses Marino. Good job.
Oh, Moses Marino. Put him on the pile. Bear quarterback took a snap in an NFL game. Yes, he did, kids. Moses Marino.
All right, well, that's enough of that shit.
Yeah, I'm done.
Well, thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Many of us have herpes.
I just want this to be over.